All right, we're rolling. How are you doing today, Laurie?
I am doing fabulous. How are you doing, David?
I am doing fabulous as well. It was kind of crappy out this morning, and then I went out and did some yard work, and um, it was kind of relieving. And then I sat down in my patio chair, and I closed my eyes, and I just felt great, soaking up the sun. It was well needed.
Yes.
Very much needed.
The sun just poured on us so beautifully today. I did the same thing. I went out to the back deck because we're having some trees taken down, which always actually makes me very sad. So I go out there and I give my gratitude and appreciation for the trees, and then focus on how it'll be renewed for someone else in their fireplace, and especially campfires outside, and the fellowship that brings. So I was kind of having that moment, but seeing the blossoms start to come now on the trees, and it was good. It was good. I was right there with you.
I actually cut down a tree in my backyard a couple days ago. And,
it's hard, isn't it?
It was hard, but it wasn't hard at the same time because it blocks the sun in our pool. So like around 4 o'clock, you don't want to be in the pool. And I was not sad to see it go. But
I think it's something similar to when our amazing Native Americans say the prayer when they have to kill the deer in order to provide meals for their families. You know, I think it's that kind of, probably that for me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to kind of show reverence to nature, right? Like, I think a lot of times we kind of take things for granted especially with the accessibility of food and being able to just go to the grocery store and eat it and have kind of a disconnect from what you're eating.
We're not even eating food really anymore. I mean, in theory.
No.
Yeah.
We're injecting ourselves.
Whole nother conversation, right?
Yeah. But I think there's a lack of reverence, right? Would you say?
I would, well, yes. But I think there's kind of a lack of even knowledge of how that pertains to you, or how it should be a part of your life, or and I don't know if it's taught as much, and I don't even want to say taught, because usually you learn even simple gratitude and appreciation by watching it from others, and we're so busy now. We're so busy that we have to make it a movement. Kindness matters, or the kids in school have their kindness buckets, or I can't remember. My kids are older now, but they had like little slogans, where you would intentionally write that, which is great, but it's also a little flabbergasting to me that it's something that we have to make as part of our curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of concerning too for me, because like as a parent, you try to raise your child to be kind. Like you don't want them to be mean to other people.
By your actions too, right?
Right, exactly. And that's kind of where I was going with all this, because I just recently came under fire for an episode I released. And one of the things, like, the people that were coming at me were just mean and rude. And I'm just thinking like how do their kids see them?
Yeah.
Like those are the future of America, those people. And when they see their parents talking about somebody who's doing a podcast that they don't agree with, and they're just talking crap about somebody they don't even know, it's like, what is going on? Yeah. Why are we insulting people?
Well, I've noticed that with sports, like when my kids were young and we'd be at a soccer game or what have you, and you would see the kiddos on the sideline waiting to go onto the field or what have you, and the verbiage that would come out of their sweet little mouths, but then I would look and they would be mirroring their parents.
Yeah. That's kind of the beauty, though, of having children also, is how they mirror.
Be careful.
They mirror the parents, like, in every aspect, the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, for me, it's kind of interesting to watch, like, some of my kids' behaviors and seeing how they, like,
accountability, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can all have a moment of silence right now and think about that.
Who's keeping you accountable?
That's That is such a good topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't really want to come on here today at this point and really get into what I do for a living. That would be an amazing future episode. But accountability is a huge part of what I talk to my clients with every single day. And they say, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I'm like, look, like it is hard for me to hold myself accountable because the voice is in your head. You know, if you're not being the person that you needed as a child, that line right there, I think I already said that to you before, you know, it's like, be the person that you needed when you were that little girl or boy. Yeah. You have to be that person now. There's nobody else in the world that will do that for you. Yeah. Because they can't. They're doing their thing, right? Yeah. So it's this little vicious cycle that we keep thinking someone else needs to say, I'm proud of you. It's time to get up now. It's okay that you need to sit down, you know, whatever it is. Yeah. We constantly keep waiting for permission, but someone to give us accountability and structure and happiness. I mean, and it does not come from anybody but yourself. That's it. Yeah. That accountability is huge. It's huge. And I mean, that's like multifaceted too. Like, I mean, if you think about that's like a spider web root system.
Well, it's your fundamentals. It's who you are. If you can't keep yourself accountable, then nobody's going to. And then you just your life just goes wherever at that point because.
Well, that's surviving. That's not living.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You should do a podcast.
We have talked about that, haven't we? I'll just help you out. How about
that? Okay. Oh, man. This episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth. So, wow, that was a interesting beginning to an episode. Usually it doesn't go like that.
I'm so deep.
I really like that though. That was pretty deep. But I want to get into you. I want to find out who Laurie is. Are you from the Lansing area? Obviously, no. you work here.
I joke and I say boys brought me this way. Not at all. Never even really paid any attention to what Lansing was when I was a kid. So I am a Michigander through and through, which I think I'm supposed to say Michiganian, but I'm a Michigander.
Why can't you say that?
I don't know. It got changed at some point. So, but I'm still a Michigander.
You're canceled for that now.
I was born and raised in the Flint, Fenton, Linden, Holly, that area over there. And went to U of M and
what did you study?
English and history.
You wanted to be a teacher?
I did.
How did that work out?
Right.
You would have been a good teacher.
I still consider myself an educator to this day. I think that whatever you are supposed to be doing, you're going to do it in one way, shape, or form or another, whether you end up having that official paper degree or not. Yeah. You know, so I did start off doing the actual governmental school and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And it wasn't for me. You know, things had changed enough over the years when I studied education. I did a lot of emphasis in psychology too, because there was this huge drive to be in the medical world too, but my mother was like, that's so hard. You can't do that. And,
oh man,
you know,
that sounds supportive.
Watch her. God bless her. But it was her fear. It was your fear.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't realize that later on that, you know, part of the accountability thing, right, is that we're giving our children our fear.
Yeah.
And unintentionally.
Yeah. They just see it.
We see it as protecting and loving. And there is so many things through my upbringing that through all the adversities, which we can touch on if we had like 5 hours,
We have as long as you want to have.
It would be a segment podcast.
We're only 9 minutes in.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Do you see how much fun it's been?
It's been a blast. That leaves another 50 minutes.
But education just changed from when I graduated to this level of highly qualified, no child left behind, state organized testing. Things just changed drastically. And I chose to have my children right after I graduated from college, or, within a few years after. And by the time I was getting back into that idea of being, and I'm going to say this is what it felt like, stuck in a classroom. Like and that's not how everybody feels about it, but when it doesn't feel quite right, you seem to somehow highlight what doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, I can't be stuck in a classroom where I don't have any freedom whatsoever to educate. And I definitely am not standing here saying that that's the way it is for everybody, but that's kind of how it felt for me, which is really more the moral of the story, which told me that wasn't for me, as I'm going to reiterate.
You just felt like you're kind of trapped into what you could and couldn't teach, and then the way you could teach.
Yeah, because what inspired me to be a teacher was someone, because school was very difficult for me. And I don't even know how I went into, to U of M and graduated well. And, because I do have a pretty decent IQ here, but I'll tell you, but my self-esteem and self-confidence does not match that IQ.
Yeah.
And that's where we are so gosh darn hard on ourselves. We're like, well, why can't I do this by now? And I should have this by now, because we are constantly trying to measure everything.
Right.
I have this degree and I didn't this and I haven't even done anything with it. And for years I did feel that way. I'm like, well, shoot, I don't have this and that, and what do I have to show for it? And there's a lot of soul searching attached to that, and getting rid of the voices of your parents, getting rid of the voices of partners and friends that, along the way that stuck with you, and back to that big thing is being the person that you needed all the way through. It's so easy to be hung up on the pain and everything, but I'm totally getting sidetracked about my journey. But
it's also difficult too when you're a young person, and I'm assuming you went to college at a very young age.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, right out of high school.
So
and in fact, I took college courses in high school because I felt like I had to do that.
Yeah. But you're still trying to figure out who you are as a person. Like, you don't even know you don't know what you want to do.
I'm watching my children go through it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult.
Yeah. I have a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. They're just shy of 17, and
everything will change drastically for them too within the next couple of years.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think where I was going with that.
We were talking about your journey a little bit, and you went to college, and then you decided that you didn't want to be a teacher. You didn't want to be stuck in a classroom because you kind of felt trapped.
Well, I'll tell you what's fascinating. Well, so I did end up teaching. I did a little bit. I was able to do this phenomenal after-school program under the 21st Century Education Grant that was written by some professors and staff at MSU. And it was one of the most amazing opportunities that I had. And it really was called Kids Learning in Computer Clubhouses, CLICK, K-L-I-C-K, which the internet at that time was just could not handle that we were spelling click incorrectly. But that allowed me to create curriculum to actually educate. And I fell into middle school, which I loved. Absolutely loved doing middle school. And
I don't think I would like that.
Right. I have this theory that you either love it or hate it. And
Yeah.
if you hate it, you got to get out, because
Yeah.
the kids will ruin you and you will ruin them. So, I kind of found my sweet spot with that a little bit. But I was teaching dance because I'm a classical ballerina, and just started teaching dance. And then I started realizing that when I was even teaching ballet, that I was speaking in French and I was explaining, exactly what that move translated to in the language. And then I'd even have a board and write it out. And I thought, oh boy, you can't walk away from it. When I was really, really little, I used to pretend as a teacher in my bedroom alone.
Wow.
With my dollies or whatever, And when I did use red ink, I apologize, everybody.
You're supposed to use black, right?
I was the red ink girl, because I am from that generation, though.
What generation? No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to disclose
I am super proud. I am a Gen Xer 100%.
Ah.
I am a Gen Xer all the way. And that's actually a very fascinating conversation, is the different generations on our... I don't want to use the word struggles, because we all have it in every generation, but
the way
our journey with everything, and
that's one thing that by doing this podcast, I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of different people of different generations.
Absolutely.
A lot of Gen Xers and a lot of even people like my age. I'm a millennial, but like everybody handles the trauma that they went through differently, and I noticed that it's different for each generation.
Well, and here's the other element that is a totally another podcast. I'm being for real on this, because I had just this huge research, because anyway, it also depends on what generation your parent is coming from. So I am very fortunate to have silent generation parents. So I'm very fortunate. But a lot of people in my age bracket have baby boomer as parents. So whereas my husband is a baby boomer. So with me having such a different, my parents, their parents every single day went to the store to get their food to put in the icebox.
Yeah, that's savage.
Had, very different.
Yeah.
Very, very, very different. And their parents, were part of wars that we can only see in books, and not even and comprehend. So I was raised very differently.
Yeah, those are different times.
Very, very, very different times.
Do you think the way that they raised kids back then was better than the way they, like, as far as building like strong, like enduring children, do you think it was better back then?
Yuck.
Like when you see some of the struggles that people are like some of the younger people are going through today.
I can't compare, because you know what? We are all injured children. We can never come out of our childhood unscathed, no matter what. It doesn't matter what income bracket you're raised in. It doesn't matter if you are what culture, we all come out of our childhood with perceptions of things a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's very confusing. And we are all searching for love and support and understanding and our voice to be heard.
Acceptance.
And acceptance, absolutely. And we all have very colorful stories. And our first mistake is to think ours is worse or not as bad as somebody else's.
Yeah, I was more or less referring to like the mentality of like, because parents back then kind of had like the pull it up by your bootstraps type mentality. Yeah. Like, oh, you fell, just rub it off. You'll be fine.
I think it's part of the cycle, though.
Yeah.
This is part of the, it's part of the cycle, because
very optimistic.
I am, because it's part of the cycle, and history always repeats itself. So in theory, I was, at a museum one time, and they had this amazing display of how generations literally will come around and how history repeats itself. And they had documentation for actually world events, but also family lineage, how it repeats, like maybe bone structure or someone's personality, like, and it's every fifth generation.
Wow.
So I started really thinking about it at the time. So basically our fifth grandfather, or I'm not see if I'm saying this right, but it's fifth generation, And at the time I started mapping it out and I was like, oh, wait a minute. So this is about when we have upheaval with war. And this is about when we have economic disaster, and this is about when we start having renewal. And it's fascinating.
Why do you think that is?
Ooh.
What makes you what makes you think that? What?
Wait, you tell me.
I don't know.
That's heavy.
I mean, you're the one telling me this, so I'm just now learning about it.
Wow. Well, I guess, what is that? The Lion King. It's a cycle of life, right?
It is a cycle of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting though how we repeat history, how we just kind of resort back to the past.
Yep.
Why?
Well, I mean, there actually is a very valid reason to a lot of that, because again, it's our experience and what we perceive at the time that creates our belief system as we get older. And if it's not healed along the way from generation to generation, then we're just going to continue to repeat it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
So when you hear those words like raising the vibrational level and positivity is power, there's a slogans for everything. But, in reality, the more that we heal, we are really literally healing the planet. It's a hard concept for us because I
don't think it is.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so at all. But it might be.
Tell me why.
I mean, I might have a very different perspective on that than a lot of people because I've gone through trauma and I've had to kind of learn how to heal myself. And then, but like the thing is like I've witnessed it, with the kind of energy you put off. Like if you do good things, typically good things are going to happen to you. If you do shitty things, then bad things are going to happen to you.
I mean, pain is still in there.
No.
You don't think so?
No, not for me.
Ooh. I am, I'll admit, I still have pain, 100%.
Well,
and I put out so much happiness and love all the time.
I guess for me, like the things that I went through really like defined my like younger 20s and my early adulthood. And I don't know, I guess I noticed, fortunately for me, I noticed that the way I was acting, the way I was managing myself had a pretty big impact on people around me. And like to the point where, people didn't want anything to do with me. And then that's when I realized, I need to do something to change. And when I did that, then I went to therapy and it did wonders. Like
But I guess then you raise your vibrational level. I mean, we're all energy. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, we could go science on this, which I would like to, because people think it's woo woo, which I hate that word, but
energy is definitely not woo woo.
I'm not going to get sidetracked here, but the fact that you had healed yourself allows you to have more freedom to be a kinder human being. You're not walking around being angry.
Yeah.
So you're spreading that cheer without it having to be Christmas.
Yeah.
That is essentially what I'm getting at. That does raise collectively our consciousness of being on a more peaceful state.
Yeah. I agree.
Did everybody hear that? He said he agrees now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that I don't know. I don't remember where I was going with that.
We can rewind at some point and go, wow, that was deep.
That was deep.
Yeah. All right. So let me go back here. So I was told all growing up lovingly that I was supposed to be a teacher because I could see you doing it. Parents always say that, which, I did it to mine too. And then it was because then, I know you're going to be a mom and you're going to have the summers off so that's the perfect career for you.
Oh, geez.
In my mind, I'm like, okay, that's how it's supposed to be. And when it kind of got to that point, part of my generational upbringing is having silent generation parents, but being raised in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we were taught, I I saw the first microwave, and I mean, and the internet wasn't a thing,
No.
I mean, so I had very much transitional experiences that were very impactful, not as big as the Industrial Revolution, but I mean, and not as big as the man walking on moon and what have you. But I'm sorry, but
Do you think that happened?
Come on. Okay, here's this. Okay, squirrel for a moment.
Okay.
So I used to work, and I did estate sales for a while. That's a whole nother conversation. I know there's a lot of things I've done in my life. So I did estate sales for a while, and people would be done with their items, these personal items, right? Well, when it was military thing, I kept saying, "Are you sure you don't want these?" I have a very strong military background, and I'm like, "How do you not want these?" And they're like, "No, I already got what I want, whatever." But there would be photos too, like personal photos. And I'd say, so I had this thing where if there was anything I was ever a question on, I would leave it in a certain part of the room, and whoever was the homeowners, they would come and we would talk and so forth. I ran an extremely ethical estate sale company.
You owned it?
I did.
Oh,
I did.
wow.
And these photos that would be coming forth, I couldn't sell them. And in fact, I spent years even tracking down family members and reunited them with, other people with them that it was very cool. But I had somebody's, their slides, all the Kodachrome and
wow,
all these slides. And here we are, like, I don't know, at least maybe 8 years later now it's been. And I found the other people's families slides in my house. And I said, all right, I can't do this anymore. I can't have such a big heart that I'm storing other people's memories here. So I had to put a stop to the hoarding, I suppose, of other people's things. But I was going through some of these slides because they're so cool. So talk about documentation of the past. I mean, the cars, the Christmas trees, there's one slide where a woman must have been shopping like at Macy's or something in the 40s.
Wow.
And the beautiful A-line dress, but the hats on the wall. It was a photo of this department store. Just priceless things. So of course the historian in me is like, oh, well, I need to find where that is and make sure that gets there. And it gets like, the rabbit hole. But moral of the story, I found somebody's pictures of when the man walked on moon. And that's what it said, man walk on moon. And it was a picture of them watching it on the television screen.
Wow.
How cool is that?
Did you save it?
I had to. Yes, I still have that one.
You have to.
Isn't that amazing?
That's so crazy.
The old television, rounded, thick glass.
Yeah.
And you see Neil
You don't
Armstrong
think they faked it?
sitting right there.
You don't think they faked it?
Why do you want me to go there? Stop it.
Just an interesting conversation. Stop it.
No. Don't give me that look. No. I'm holding no. We are capable of amazing things.
That's truly amazing, though, that you were able to just go through that and find a piece of history. That's a piece of history.
Yeah. So I guess if you want a window into the very first question, asking me about my upbringing, which, like I said, how many years do we have to talk about it too? But I would say one of the pulls for me to originally want to have a history degree and to preserve history, to inevitably end up getting into an estate sale company, as preservation. And I actually did some work with the preservation societies of Michigan and barn preservation. Like, cool. I got into all of this stuff for a short bit.
You sound like somebody whenever you sound like somebody whenever you get involved in something, you deep dive into it, no matter what it is.
That's why I'm super careful. Like what I do, I'm like, someone asked me to do one time bell choir. Oh, Laurie, you'd be so good. And I was like, I can't. I'm like, or be on this board. And I'm like going, no, man, because if I do something, I'm never going to do a half-ass. Like I've got, my integrity. But
Yeah.
again, so there as your question, I was raised by the silent generation. And I tell you what, you don't give up.
Yeah. And if you do something, you do it right the first time.
You do it right the first time.
Yeah.
And you better put that smile on your face and start scrubbing the floors, yeah. So I try not to go there because we're all doing the best we can as parents.
Yeah.
And each generation we're trying to do, focus on the things that we feel is right and try to let go of the things that hurt us. And then we end up doing the same thing to our kids in just a different
Yeah. I think just the problem now, especially I'm a parent today. Like I'm raising young kids today. And so like the thing I notice is that there's a lot of noise. There's just a lot of noise all the time, like from the internet, and you got social media, and you got the news and the media telling you what you should do and what you shouldn't do, what's right and what's wrong. And then you got your kids on YouTube watching whatever. And it's like, there just seems to be so much more noise today than there used to be. And so for me as a parent, it feels like I got so much more to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. I can't argue that. I agree.
Yeah. And I think it makes parenting a little bit more difficult.
It's definitely challenging.
It's challenging. I don't know, more difficult, but I guess the mentality today is a lot different than it used to be as far as raising children, because you didn't have to worry about the influence from others and as much.
Yeah. That is a deep conversation right there.
But let's get back into you.
Yeah, let me bring back to the historical preservation aspect. So, I did not have a large family. I still don't, and everybody that I did have were older. So my role models were blue hair.
Wow.
I mean, does anyone even know what that term is anymore?
No.
I mean, and I'm strong, amazing women, that went and had their hair set, weekly. And I mean, I wouldn't trade it for, would not trade it.
Is that a thing?
Anymore?
Anymore? Perms?
Well, okay, so Genex'ers we'd have like the piggyback.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It was like really tight and scary. Aqua neck, but I think I have always longed for camaraderie, for that loud sibling reunion. I've already lost 2 siblings. It's I think the more that I would dive into other people's lives, that it looked like they cared, that they documented Christmas. Well, hell, I won't even get into what our Christmas looked like, I mean, and then losing my brother when I was like 7, that was hard.
You witnessed it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Ooh, that was very impactful.
What kind of impacts did that have on you for your life? I mean, because I could imagine if watching a sibling die, it's got to be traumatic in so many different ways. And it's got to we talk about like kids growing up too early. Like I would think that would cause you to grow up early.
Right there. I'm sure anybody that gets in conversation or is even hearing that could hear it in my voice. Very much so.
We don't have to talk about that.
No, I guess I was one. Yeah. I mean, I think because I had to grow up so quick, or the perception. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Now that's a better way to look at it. The perception of that little girl was that I had to grow up very quickly because I saw that my parents were falling apart. And I saw that my middle brother was as well. So the perception was from a natural take charge child. I'm a Leo. So I was already assertive, but extremely shy, which is
really
very shy.
What happened?
I don't know. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, you're not shy anymore, right?
No, but I'm
No.
timid. I will be, I think in the beginning when you said something, I was like, oh, I don't know, and it's funny because then I laugh about it to myself actually, because I'm like, look at you, you're so not like that. You're a lion, but I am, and there's, like I said, you can't come out of your childhood, without being unscathed. So again, silent generation. I was raised where, literally you are seen, but you're not heard.
Yeah.
Without them verbally saying that. But and all my role models were, 80-year-old men and women that would take me home from church. I had the white glove Presbyterian, and we'd go to the country club or whatever, and but yeah, I wanted some level of family. I've never had grandparents. I had a grandmother that was on the West Coast. I only saw her maybe twice in my whole life.
Wow.
I had my mother's mother was in Toledo, Ohio, which was only an hour and a half from where I was raised, but I don't know, 10 times.
Wow.
I don't know. Holidays was just, and then when my brother died, it was just us, There wasn't anything.
So you just kind of felt alone.
Very much so. And I struggle with that still now.
Yeah.
That is definitely, and no one would ever think that. Like,
What aspects of that do you struggle with now, being alone? Like, as far as, do you struggle with like having somebody to talk to, somebody to kind of like a sibling to just call and be like, hey, like this is how my day's going? Like, what aspects of it do you struggle with?
Well, I guess the question would be what defines alone to you or to me, right? Because that's probably a very different question for everybody.
I think it's a different question for everybody because not everybody has experienced losing somebody so close. Like, so like for me, alone would just be like I would love alone time, but I haven't experienced loss like you've experienced.
Oh, today I had the house to myself for the very first time, and I don't know when. My
Was it
husband,
nice?
oh, so beautiful, so wonderful. So I crave that alone time because of all the noise, right? But also because I am somebody that I don't like using the word healer. That I have an issue with that, but I am somebody that encourages and helps others find on their healing journey.
Yeah.
And being an educator, that is what I dedicate my life to. And so there is an awful lot of people coming to me all the time, asking, needing, and I help fill that void for them through educating, through kindness, through a listening ear. So I guess what would define my aloneness is how do I get that back? And because I'll tell you what, it's scary for people to see Laurie fall apart. It's very, very scary for people.
Yeah, because you got so many people counting on you. So many people, you're the person they go to when they need help.
Right. And now this is where did that begin? That began when my brother died. I had the perception that I had to be parent and take care of everything. God bless my parents. I can't even imagine what that's like. I mean, there is no criticism to them whatsoever.
Right. No,
as
I
a
couldn't.
Parent.
I couldn't imagine. I understand what you're saying with that because I'm in the same sense the same way because when we got taken away from my mom and put into foster care, I kind of became that person to where I felt like I needed to kind of keep everything together. So I actually have in my bag over there, I have a stack of papers from the government that I requested from when I was in care. And it's like therapists,
Recently?
Within the last year or two. Yeah.
Okay.
I think actually I might have gotten it before COVID. It was like right before COVID. And then COVID hit. Like I requested it before COVID and then COVID hit and I got it in the mail. So I was very fortunate because who knows where I'd be in that process now. Actually, I'm going to grab that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, this stack of papers is insane. Look at this.
So he's I'll let the listeners know he's pulling out this thick stack.
Yeah, so it's interesting because
So let me find out. This is essentially your legal documentation of your life, how the government or the state of Michigan perceived you.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's interesting because a lot of this is like documentation from like therapists, that I had went to, and they would explain how like they would ask me questions about my mom and, like how life was with her. And I would lie. Like I would lie because I didn't want her to look bad because I wanted to go back. And so in a sense, I became the same way as you, trying to hold everything together. But it's interesting going through this because like, I didn't even know that. Like it's interesting how therapists can just read people in a sense. Like they can understand like somebody without even really the person telling them what's going on. It's wild. But yeah, no, I got this like
good ones. Good ones can do that.
The good ones. There are bad ones, but yeah, it's wild. I was reading through this and it took me a while, but
how about they're not bad? They're just not as experienced, maybe.
Yeah.
Or versed or prepared to be in that field. Maybe they would do better with a different mode of counseling or therapy.
Correct.
I disagree that there's good and bad.
You don't think there's bad? I think there's people who don't try as hard. How about that?
Oh, that's tacky too. Like, what if they don't know? You can only know what you know.
Yeah.
You can only know what you know.
But you can
let's say this person in here that maybe you read and you're like, oh man, she was terrible. She was a bad therapist or what have you. Well, that experience that he or she had with you allowed her or him to know more now that they can add to their profession and that's their experience.
That's a good point.
So they may not with the next person coming in, you can only know what you know. Now they know more and they know how to help that person in the future.
That's true. Everybody learns.
Just sometimes you have to be the learning lesson for someone and that's hard.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. That's a good perspective. It's a really good perspective. Way to put things into perspective for me. But
educator.
And that's real positive too. I mean, because I'm sure the people that, I had as a therapist are still probably practicing today. And if they weren't good at what they do, they probably wouldn't be doing it. So.
Well, sometimes people don't retire when they should.
That is also true.
But that's out of fear, right?
Yeah.
What do you do with your life when you retire? What defines you?
Yeah.
So anything that we do, here's another fascinating thought is a sideways thing here, but whatever career we go into, it is a reflection, again, of our upbringing, our perceptions, and we're either using it in a positive way or we're using it to fuel the sadness, which in theory would be kind of the negativity inside of you. But you got to have both, right?
Yeah.
There's the perfect yin yang.
Yeah.
So without our sadness and our grief and our trauma, there's no way that we can understand, the goodness.
Yeah.
And we can choose to highlight the pain and like example, someone that was sexually abused becomes, the sexual abuser.
Yeah.
So they're highlighting the pain and they're focusing on what they know and what, what's the difference now or what have you.
Yeah.
But they're also able to shut off that pain on a conscious or subconscious level of this isn't right or wrong.
Yeah.
But somebody that, could also, having that same experience, turns into the greatest advocate and starts changing, bills and the government and so forth. So
that's the success story, right? When you hear stories of somebody who went through a situation like that.
One way of looking at it.
They're the hero of their story. Whereas somebody who...
The reason why I'm hesitating is because that's the same thing. I'm going to go back to what we said a little bit ago, is that there's still that pain underneath that we still have to heal.
Yeah.
So if you are still taking it on the good way, but that's all you're thinking about all the time and that's all you're doing, well, now what are you you're still surviving. So even though you're taking it in the good way, but that's where... kudos to you. Give yourself major accolades right now because you've been able to take those things that you've gone through and you're able to put it in a balanced healing.
Yeah.
You're able to function and have that family and able to educate others, but not be consumed by it.
Yeah, I definitely think that's where balance is important, right?
Absolutely.
Because once you become consumed by it, then that's the only thing keeping you together.
But you only know what you can know. So
Right.
when you're in that situation, you don't realize that you're consumed by it because you're almost kind of running from the pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing as like an alcoholic, somebody who drowns, everything away because they don't want to handle what happened to them.
Same
Same
thing.
thing.
If I mean, and here when we get into addiction, this is where we don't understand is that if someone is running obsessively 2 to 3 times a day, well, just to get but it's healthy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they're still doing something that is providing the body quick endorphins
Yeah.
to mask the pain and give false happiness for a moment. And that's a hard one to argue because people would be like, but it's healthy.
Yeah, you're a savage.
Oh my God. Or reading.
Yeah.
People that will healthy reading is healthy. Well, yes, it is, but everything in moderation.
Yeah.
So whatever you pick, it could be quote unquote what is looked upon as healthy. But if you're picking reading, 5 to, 10 hours a day or what, and I'm just throwing numbers out, but whatever you do, if it's to escape,
Yeah.
then you're surviving.
Yeah. I don't remember what took us there.
Let's go back to this really
go
thick
back.
pack.
Okay.
Oh, it was the good therapist and bad therapist thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that either, but you gave me a bunch of different perspectives. So,
Mm-hmm. So you got, what is this perspective for you? You have a thick pack of what is supposed to be you.
Yeah, this perspective was interesting reading because I had my perspective of the way things had been growing up. Like the way I remember sitting in therapy, and I just felt like it didn't really help me. It didn't really do much. I felt like they didn't really ask that many questions. They didn't really know too much.
What age are you talking?
I was 9 when I went into foster care, adopted when I was like 11. So that time, 9 to 11.
That's a very difficult age to work with counseling.
Yeah.
It's back to you're either a good middle school teacher or you're a good,
Well, and the thing is too, is like for me, I was extremely close to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so being taken away from her was one of the worst things that ever happened to me. And so, when somebody was questioning me about, the things that she was doing, I would just lie, I didn't want them to know the truth, or I wanted to water down the truth.
And then what do? We start convincing ourselves that it's true.
Yeah.
And that's what we all are doing it in some way, shape, or form in every one of our stories, because we are pushing the pain away because our society, our culture does not teach us how to access these emotions and how to work with them.
Yeah.
We want to hide them and push them away. Don't cry in public. Don't show how exciting this is to have this bottle of water. Heaven forbid. Hide it down. Only say thank you instead of going, yay. We wouldn't want that present,
Right.
to be, because then we're gloating, then we're bragging. We are so taught to have the car going and then the car stop. And then you better hurry up and then you slow, it's extremely confusing. And see, that's where back to why part of the reason I argue where this time frame is harder than 40, 50 years ago raising your kids. We had the same perception of emotion then as we do now.
Yeah. But nothing's changed as far as that. But everything else around us has changed drastically.
Because we still are in a culture, a society where healing is not a priority.
But it should be. I mean, you look around at society today, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe some of the things that are happening. Like, it just makes me lose hope for the future. As far as like the healthy minds of everybody, it just seems like everybody's losing their shit, right? I look out there and I see people losing their shit, especially when it comes to politics. It's like people get too enwrapped in those type of things.
That's not new.
No, it's not.
No, that's
But it's all
there's
it's
always
all
been
amplified.
something.
It's
There's
amplified with social media, the media, TV, all that
it is
jazz.
that, but it is also a choice
Podcasts.
to focus on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so that's back to okay, like attracts like, but we also want to go where we feel welcomed,
Yeah.
where we feel
Your
like
tribe.
someone believes what we believe.
Yeah.
And so that's why all of these things exist, because whatever we believe, we can go out and find that.
Yeah.
And if we don't want to heal or see the truth, then we won't look for it. We will only find that.
Yeah.
So again, I go back to that raising collectively the more healing that we search for that healing, then we are amplifying that love and that acceptance in a healthier way.
How did you become, I mean, what was your healing journey like? Because obviously there was some childhood trauma that you had, and I don't know what other trauma you had growing up, but
I'm still healing journey. I
at
don't
what
think
point,
until I die, I'll be done with
but
it.
at what point did you realize that I need to try to heal myself? I need to try to mentally become more clear.
Well,
And then you at some point decided to start helping other people with their journeys.
the helping other people thing, that just happened. That
But it happened for a reason.
That just happened for a reason. But to answer for your first question, so as I stated, my brother died in 1984, and my sister was adopted a year after my brother passed away, and that was a whole nother confusing, exciting, messed up thing. But the best thing that could have ever happened to me in the long run. But sadly, she lost her life to addiction and her scars. I mean, she was adopted and came into our life when she was 5 from Korea, in a time in 1985 where you did not have foreign adoption like we do now, especially in the Flint area. I mean, that was a whole nother journey right there. But she has since passed away, and the last, that happened in 2017, and I could not function. Okay, I was not living. Everybody else would say I was functioning. I was not living. Probably it took me at least 3 years. And now that we're here in 2022, I'm learning now who I am now. I don't feel like I'm still even fully living again. When you have something that just shakes, I'm sitting there going, how is this possible that I've lost 2 siblings and I'm only 45 years old? Well, at the time, it was not, I was 40, and it was just like, what is this? And that's when I really knew I was not okay. And I think you don't even realize that you're really not okay from your childhood, until like that breaking thing happens.
Yeah.
And then you go, I cannot move any forward anymore. I've got to do something about it.
You seem pretty introspective.
Yes.
Like now talking to you, you seem pretty introspective. So where did that come from? Have you not been like that your whole adulthood?
No, I have, but again, you can only know what you know.
Yeah.
So as I kept growing and having more life experience and different situations, come forth, I think part of me being so quiet and shy as a young one is I was learning. There's that education thing. I was very much letting these amazing silent generation form my upbringing, my future. But I guess I started once my kids got older. I got to the point where I'm like, okay, now I need to go. What do I want to do? I'm at that point now where I'm not having any more babies. So what am I going to do with myself? And, but I kind of had some time bought, I guess, because my husband then was retiring. And, and he's a retired police officer, and the statistics for the mortality rate are alarming. And I made that my mission, that I would make sure that I set up my husband's retirement where he could be happy. And also with him being older, for us to be able to enjoy that time together. And that's where we actually kind of got into the estate sale business, which that's funny how that happened. But many, many, many beautiful stories with that. But there was that journey of like, well, now what? What am I going to do? And here I have this, teaching degree, but I don't, because it's so old now. And, that was, back from 98, and I'm like, oh, now we're here, and what do I do? And I ended up finding reflexology, and that fascinated me because it's kind of in the medical field without having to go through all of the deep medical stuff. And I had studied, anatomy and physiology, and especially being a ballerina, I have a very keen awareness of the body. So studying that, and I'm also a fitness instructor. So studying all of the muscles again and all of that, it just was right up my alley. But what I didn't know was that it has a huge element of understanding the emotional body, and how the emotional body and the physical body work simultaneously. They're not separate, which is what our society wants you to think.
Yeah.
Is here's medical, and then here's emotional. And you don't deal with this one unless it blows up.
Yeah.
And you only deal with this one if it blows up, and then you just get medicine or what have you. So that was kind of an aha, I was on the right path moment, and started actually bringing forth a lot of my psychology training. And it was like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, this is actually kind of cool. I had no idea why I took all those classes at school.
Wow.
But because you don't make it your degree, you ignore it.
Yeah.
And then it kind of comes back. But all of those experiences, you go, oh, wait a minute. Okay. I kind of like checkpoints. So got into reflexology. Didn't think it was going to be anything but, here's another, women have this quite a bit, that is it enough? And, this career, is it professional enough, or is it just like a home-based marketing thing, and like, and so I was down on myself with it not being this, huge profession and what have you. But was still hungry for more and more. And then someone brought up the idea of hypnotherapy. And I was like, really? Had never been hypnotized. And I went and studied it.
Wow.
First time I had ever been hypnotized was in class.
What was that experience like?
It's beautiful. It really is. It's so peaceful. It's so peaceful to tap in and talk to the younger you. It's so cool.
I think a lot of people have a misconception of what hypnotism is.
Yeah. Big time. Huge.
What is it like? What is being hypnotized like? I don't want you to do it to me right now, because that might be interesting.
But it's funny though, because it's such a natural state. We are all hypnotized. I can't even give you a number how many times in our life, because it's a natural state.
Yeah.
Is
it like dopamine in the brain that kind of...
Well, let's not bore everybody and get into all the science aspect here, because then that might be one of those little arguments where people are going to start calling in and saying,
oh, they can do whatever. Right? They say whatever. I don't pay attention.
But let me talk layman term anyway, because this is more who our audience is.
Are you saying my audience is dumb? I'm
saying your audience is amazing, and they're I don't have to get into, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So when you look at that campfire and you just get mesmerized, which look up Mr. Mesmer, by the way, on the internet sometime, but you get mesmerized and you see these flames, and you start looking at the dancing of how they move, the colors and what have you, the crackling. I mean, you get so immersed in the experience of the sight, the sound. And before you know it, someone's going, David, David.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, what? I'm sorry. I was just staring into that fire. But yet you were hearing everybody around you, but you just kind of went into that peaceful state.
Yeah.
That is a level of hypnosis.
I had that experience one time at hot yoga. It was interesting. It was the first time I ever did hot yoga. And I don't know if it was the instructor, because it was kind of a guided meditation after the session. And we're just laying there, music's playing. We're in the hot, I don't know what you call it. It's like a sauna. It's really hot in there, but we're just cooling off.
So hot in
so
there.
So hot. But he's talking us through
Genex'r. That was Paris Hilton right there. It was hot. Go back.
It was really hot. Yo.
Was it dope?
It was dope. It was pretty dope. But no, the instructor was kind of doing a guided meditation, and then I just drift off. And it was weird because I felt like I was laying on a beach and I could hear waves crashing. And then like next thing you know, I'm back.
Yes.
I'm back, and I'm like,
Yes.
I want to go back. I want to
So
go back.
I actually lead a once a month guided meditation, and I think I told you a little bit that I'm in the process of actually recording them, and I'd like to get them out there. And I have these amazing musicians that have come into my life. Being a musician myself, it was really neat to connect with these other musicians that are doing all of the music for me for the meditation.
That's so cool.
It's super cool.
And
I
it's
can't
all
wait for
local
you to
people?
hear it sometime. No, actually, in the music world, and it could be me because I love people, and once I get to know you, you're like my family right off the bat. Because remember, I didn't really have any growing up, so
now we're friends.
So now we're like bestest. But no, one of them said, "Well, I got this other guy that I think he should do this part," and and it's just the chain reaction.
Wow.
So one of them is in Georgia, actually, and the guy that's doing the mixing and some of the editing, downriver somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's just kind of cool. But
That's cool.
let's go back to how does hypnosis feel? So I find it very similar and almost parallel to meditation. So when I lead my guided meditation, that word guided meditation feels safer to people. But really it's not that much different. And there's where people will argue that and so forth. And that's fine. We can get into semantics. Well, I don't have to, I get bored when people want to argue stuff, but what it comes down to is the feeling that you already are in a natural state of relaxation. And it's just a gentle reminder to bring you back into that state. And then when we get to certain levels, again, layman term here, you are able to access memories, which is when we're in hypnosis that we're going to a level of relaxation. It's actually part of the brain waves, a state here that we are able to access memories, but also the feelings. But what's fascinating about it, people are always concerned that they're going to have an abreaction, like that it's going to be so scary or upsetting, and I always say, you know what, maybe with someone else, but how it works with Laurie, it's completely safe. Because first of all, no matter what, you always have free will. We are the planet here that has free will no matter what. And I don't care if you are hypnotized or sleeping, you have free will. No one can ever take that away from you.
Yeah.
So
So you're not going to hypnotize me and then make me sign over my house and all that jazz.
Yeah, no. But and if I were to try it, your free will would come into play and go, no, there's no way I would do that. So when people you see like stage hypnotists, and they'll say balk like a chicken, or I want you to faint or whatever. They are already that type of person that would get a kick out of doing it anyway, and putting on the show for somebody, what have you.
Is it like theater then? Is it not really real?
Well, there's stage hypnotism.
Okay.
And then there is hypnosis for healing.
Okay.
So very different.
Okay.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, there's another argument there, right there, but same concept. Okay. But it's hypnosis for healing is so powerful. But again, you have to be ready. And I figure whoever ever comes to me they're only by the time they come to me, they're already ready. And we have this amazing built-in safety mechanism, and where our subconscious will only reveal to our conscious self the level of information that we can handle at that point. So remember when I said back to, you can only know what you know. Yeah. And then once you know, then you're kind of obligated to do something about it or not. That's where maybe we start reading or running or, having that drink or what have you, but that accountability. So this is where, whatever your body has already been trying to tell you, that's usually, like I said, I get the phone call, because no one would even think about hypnosis unless the body was already going, hey, right. And my logo is a butterfly, and I've had a lot of people say, oh gosh, I've been seeing a lot of butterflies lately. And then I just saw your logo and I thought I'd call you. And I'm like, interesting how that always happens like that. But because we attract what we need, and we're always our subconscious or our higher self is always trying to help us. Yeah. I mean, our body is designed to heal. I mean, we get a cut and the white blood cells are running to that, we are always finding that healing.
I mean, it even goes to like trauma responses, the way you react Absolutely. When something happens, that's you trying to protect yourself.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's kind of a deep conversation right there, because that has to do with your perceptions also of what is fear and what have you and so forth. But I guess the moral of the story, to answer your question, it's safe. You don't have, because you're kind of watching it from above. So you're watching this story from your childhood or what have you. It doesn't even have to be that. It could be 2 years ago, could be yesterday. But you're rewatching it, but you're kind of watching it from the bird's eye view, and I can sense when my client is going there, and if there might be like a little like muffled sob, or I can tell the body language and what have you. And then that's my job to say, you are safe right here and now. You are have this amazing ability right now that you can go to that younger you. David, you can go to that person, or to your 4-year-old self. And now from all these years of experience, what he needs. And then right at that moment, you're being the person that child needs. And it's like a kind of a click of like, wait a minute, I do know what they need, and I'm going to take care of that right now. And so that healing begins. And it's now you know that you really are more than enough.
Do you think it helps put things into perspective?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
It's so cool.
I want to do it.
I wish that there was someone like me that could do it on me. I mean, I know there's self-hypnosis and all that, and it's funny because actually in training, when I had someone, I knew the exercise that what we were going back and to do and so forth. And the person was very nervous and had the awkward pauses and didn't have the melodic vocals like I do. And, but it was brilliant because I got to actually understand the difference between my subconscious and my conscious, because I gave myself permission to trust this person and to relax enough. Yeah. And so I was hungry also for this healing. And when she asked me whatever question it was, like, do you remember whatever memory or what have you? And then I knew on the paper of our homework assignment what the next question was. And she like kind of skipped and she didn't know. And so I was on the conscious level going, gosh darn it, such and such is missing ... But my subconscious was going, this feels so nice. And it doesn't matter if she forgets that, because you're still in the position to heal. So welcome that healing. And then I thought, wait a minute. So then my conscious self's going, well, whose voice is that? And then I had my subconscious hearing what she asked, and I'm answering that. And then I could hear the higher self going, Laurie, you're doing so well. I love you. And it was like, whoa, wait a minute. So then I'm like, whoa, forget what you're saying, lady. Like, I just really discovered my higher self, my subconscious and my conscious. And I was like, that's so cool.
Wow.
It's so cool. Because then, you know,
like
there's a path of really knowing yourself.
That's really interesting.
I cannot guarantee that all hypnotherapists do this because we were trained to do like scripts and, and people call and say, can you help me quit smoking or whatever? And I'm like, well, let's talk about how I do it. So, I can't speak for the hypnotists out there. And I am using the word hypnotist because that's become another issue where you can't say hypnotherapist because, you're not actually a therapist.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a lot. Some states, require this, that, thus, and so. Just like I would never say treat, prescribe, diagnose, I suggest,
right.
and there's a lot of things that we have to be very careful about. So, and that's where I'm full disclosure here. I prefer to kind of talk about it in a loving, basic way for everybody to feel, first of all, that healing is attainable.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be, oh, my package is this much money for this many sessions, and I guarantee in 4 times you will. No, no, that's not what life's about. But that's actually how it typically is. So,
how many sessions do you think you should do of hypnotherapy?
Oh, you are going to do that. All right. Well,
I mean, like,
it depends
if you're
on the
trying
goal.
if you're trying to overcome like some, let's say, childhood trauma,
well,
I mean, would you have to go through it maybe one time for it to be impactful, or do you need to do it several times?
No. However, the first time really, okay, this is kind of how I've observed it over the years, is the first time is kind of the holy shit. Like, you come out and you're like, whoa. And I don't ever tell anybody that's the first one because then they'd be like, oh God. What I do tell them is that it's soothing and you're going to receive what you need to at that moment. Because there's that built-in safety mechanism. Yeah. So you'll receive what you need to receive. But we always have these preconceived expectations and notions. We always think it's supposed to be like this and like that, and no, that's not how it works ever, right? So the first session really is like, whoa.
For me, whenever I go into something like that, I don't try to like hold back, because whenever I go into something like that, I want to dive in. I want to be like, okay, I'm going to fully embrace this. Well, I want to see how far I can go.
You would be fun.
That's where, like, that's how
but
I am.
Not everybody is.
Right.
And a lot of people are very nervous, very timid. And I'm always so proud of them that they actually got to the appointment and they're actually sitting in that chair. And I tell them that because there are so many ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people
to not be there.
A lot of people have never addressed some of the things they've been through.
Oh, yeah.
So when they go to something like that, it's got to be very difficult. Whereas like somebody like
the bravery, it's so brave.
Somebody like me, I talk about the things I've gone through. Like almost every podcast, I mentioned something. So like I've gone through. Yeah, exactly. And so like by talking about it, it's helped me tremendously. But so when I go do something like that, I want to just dive all in.
Yeah.
I just want to see how far this thing will take me.
Well, as I mentioned, I work quite closely with law enforcement and militaries. I really have a soft spot for grief trauma, but PTSD from careers.
Yeah.
Not everybody can work in that type of work.
Yeah. Or you may be fine when you start, but by the time you're retired, you've seen so many things.
Oh yeah. No, as far yes.
It changes you.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And you've got to be conscious all the way through to not let it.
Yeah.
And that's difficult.
Yeah.
But not, I guess what I was originally getting at is not everybody can specialize in that like I do.
Yeah.
And that's where, someone will come to me and, finally, spill all these things that, it's been so heavy on them. And I can create that safe space for you that, first of all, there isn't anything that you can tell me that I'm going to judge you for, because I mean, as you've already listened to me, you know that I truly believe that we all have something that is our pain that we're trying to learn what to do with it, because it's not a natural state to have that pain.
Do you have an obligation to report stuff if something were to come out?
So there's certain states that would have all of that, but this is one of those unregulated professions. So it depends on the state.
Okay.
Moralistically, you know, that's
it's your choice.
That's yes, in our state it is.
Okay.
It's different than like in the teaching. So in our school systems there is that, and also
same with therapy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's because it's not regulated in that way. You know, it's no. That's a deep question. If someone comes to me, but I don't think they would come to me. I attract very different things, so I'm not even gonna bring that in.
If something like that happens, I'm sorry.
I will, since you're my friend now, I will call you and say, "What am I supposed to do?"
I would be like, report that.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's wild. So we're an hour and 15 minutes in.
Wonderful.
Isn't that crazy?
Easy.
We could talk all day.
Yes.
Or all night. Yeah, it's insane. That's why you need to start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about real quick?
Self-love. If we had to wrap anything back to the very beginning of our conversation, you know, when I post something on Instagram, I hashtag always self-love advocate. That is my passion and my drive, is to advocate for everybody to understand that we have to love ourselves first. And that first concept is like, what does that mean to love myself? We think it is, you know, getting our nails done or going on vacation or, you know, having that massage. And that's, you know, little tiny parts of the spider web, but it's so much deeper than that. And then I'm going to come back to it. It's be the person that you needed when you were a child. You know, hold yourself accountable for those mean words. You know, don't be mean girl. Don't be mean boy in your head. You know, don't be the jerk. And we are. The way we talk to ourselves, we would never talk to somebody else that way. And when I do some of my meditations, I'll, like how you had said when you were in hot yoga, how you just kind of drifted away. Mm-hmm. One of the things I do is I have the patrons bring forth the image of themselves as whatever age. And they can look at it as maybe the photograph on their night table, or maybe they can actually visualize that. And then I have them bring forth the image more as we sense smells, what have you, you know, and just bringing it stronger and stronger. And then I have them love that child and have them say kind words and loving words. And then I bring the awareness that when you talk about how fat you look in the mirror, how late you were, you shouldn't. Ugh, gosh, you know, the shoulds on your shoulders, you know, all the nasty things we say to ourselves, and we downplay that it's not so mean. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I shouldn't have this. I shouldn't have that. And then I have them visualize. Now, can you imagine saying those things to that sweet little boy or girl that has only been out of God's arms this long? And that's that moment where you go, whoa, I'm being so mean to myself, and myself is beautiful. So that's how I will leave this.
Thank you for doing this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And hopefully it's one of many.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Be blessed. Thank you.